The Millionaire CEO was strict. Until he saw two lonely little girls silently staring at chocolate bars. In the heart of Manhattan, where the streets pulsed with ambition and time itself seemed a commodity, Jonathan Hale was king. CEO of a billion-dollar tech empire, he was as revered as he was feared. Known for his razor-sharp decisions and ice-cold demeanor, Jonathan didn't believe in excuses, only results. Employees whispered about how he once fired a man for being 3 minutes late. He didn't celebrate holidays, didn't believe in small talk, and certainly didn't believe in charity. The world rewards winners, he'd often say, not sob stories. It was a cold December evening when Jonathan's life began to change. He had just finished a late meeting with investors, frustrated by delays in the new product rollout. The city was lit with festive lights and joyful music, but Jonathan moved through it like a ghost in a machine, immune to the holiday cheer. His driver was late, so he decided to walk the 3 blocks to his penthouse suite. He pulled his coat tighter, head down, passing a small convenience store he never noticed before. That's when he saw them. 2 little girls, no older than 6 or 7, stood silently outside the store window. Their coats were threadbare, shoes too small, hands pressed against the frosty glass. Inside, brightly wrapped chocolate bars lined the shelves, glistening under the fluorescent light. The taller girl had her arm wrapped protectively around the smaller one, who was shivering. Neither said a word. They just stared at the chocolate, intently, longingly. Jonathan should have kept walking. He almost did. But something about their silence stopped him. It wasn't just the hunger in their eyes, it was the stillness. The kind of stillness that spoke of resignation, not hope. They weren't begging. They weren't crying. They weren't even asking. They had already given up. Without realizing why, Jonathan walked into the store. He wasn't sure what he was doing, this wasn't part of his schedule. He was a man of logic, structure. But his heart pounded in a way it hadn't since he was a boy. Those 2 girls outside, he said to the clerk, a college-aged kid with a nose ring. Do you know them? The clerk glanced up. Yeah. They come by sometimes. Never ask for anything, just look. Kinda breaks your heart. Why doesn't someone do something? Jonathan asked, irritated, though he wasn't sure at whom. The clerk shrugged. People are busy. They disappear before anyone can really talk to them. Something in Jonathan snapped. He bought every chocolate bar on the shelf and walked outside. Hey, he said softly, not wanting to scare them. These are for you. The girls looked up, startled. The older one instinctively stepped in front of her sister. Her eyes were wary, too used to the world's cruelty. I don't want anything back, Jonathan said, crouching down to their level. Really? Just. Merry Christmas. The younger girl's lips quivered before she whispered, thank you. The older one nodded silently, accepting the bag of chocolates like it was treasure. As they turned to leave, Jonathan called out, wait, do you live nearby? The girls exchanged a glance. Then, slowly, the older one said, we stay in the shelter on 23 RD, if there's space. He nodded, something heavy tightening in his chest. Okay. Be safe. They disappeared into the night, chocolates in hand. But Jonathan couldn't forget them. That night, alone in his glass penthouse overlooking the city, he found himself unable to focus. He poured a glass of wine, then another, but the faces of the girls haunted him. He remembered being 10 years old, watching his mother cry at the kitchen table when she couldn't afford groceries. He remembered hunger. He remembered silence. He had spent his life building walls, convincing himself that his past didn't define him, but now it was knocking on his heart again. The next morning, he called his assistant. Get me information on the shelter on 23rd Street. I want to visit it today. There was stunned silence. Sir, personally. Yes. Personally. He visited the shelter unannounced. The director, a weary woman in her 60s named Darlene, welcomed him with guarded suspicion. "I'm not here for publicity," he said. "I saw 2 girls last night. I just want to help." She sighed. "There are dozens like them. We do what we can, but funding is always a battle." Jonathan looked around. Broken heaters. Thin blankets. Underfed children huddled together. It felt like a punch to the gut. "How much do you need?" he asked. Darlene blinked. "For what?" "To fix this. To give these kids some hope. Food. Coats. Toys. A safe place. Everything." She hesitated. "You're serious?" "For the first time in a long time, yes." That night, Jonathan canceled meetings, postponed investor calls, and sat down with his finance team. He created a new division within his company dedicated to community outreach, starting with a $10 million donation to shelters across New York. But more than the money, he gave his time. He visited shelters every week, read stories to children, helped build winter care kits. His staff were bewildered at first, but soon, inspired by their boss's transformation, they joined in. A year later, the 2 girls, Lena and Ava, had a safe home. They were attending school regularly, full of laughter and light. Jonathan had quietly arranged for their care through a local family he trusted. They didn't know it was him. He never told them. He didn't need to. On Christmas Eve, exactly 1 year later, he returned to that same convenience store. Snow fell gently as he looked at the window where the girls had once stood. He wasn't the same man. The strict CEO still ran his empire with excellence, but now he led with heart. He discovered that strength wasn't about shutting people out, it was about lifting others up. As he turned to leave, a woman and her daughter passed by. The little girl looked up at the chocolate bars, wide-eyed. Her mother smiled and said, "Maybe next time, sweetheart." Jonathan paused. "Excuse me," he said, gently tapping the woman's shoulder. "Let me get that for her." The woman's eyes welled up. "That's very kind of you, sir." He handed the little girl a chocolate bar, then looked at the sky as snowflakes danced on his coat. Somewhere in the distance, bells rang. And in that moment, Jonathan Hale finally understood, real success isn't measured by the power you hold, but by the lives you touch. And for the first time in years, he smiled, not the corporate, boardroom smile, but a true, human one. Because sometimes, the smallest act of kindness can melt the coldest heart. And change everything.